all picked up a blue voucher when you came in. If you did not, pick one up at the registration table so you get your parking validated, and then you insert both the parking ticket, the white one, and then the blue one that you get from our staff when it asks for payment. And it validates you for 3 hours. So this event will be over by 7 o'clock. So you'll be under that 3 hours. So just make sure you get that blue ticket from our registration desk before you leave. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Paul Guppy, who's our Vice President for Research, and he'll talk a little bit about state budget issues and introduce the rest of our research staff. I also want to point out that Senator Randy Becker is here, or was here, there she is. There's a couple of elected officials here tonight and some candidates that are running for office. I know Sean Bunny, who's on the Pierce County Council, the State House, is with us. Both Sean and Senator Becker are great partners of ours in Pierce County and in Olympia, so we appreciate you being here and what you do for us in public policy. And also Len Zarelli, Greg mentioned our great board. Len Zarelli is on our board of directors and is down here in Lakewood in Pierce County. So I want to thank Len for all he does for us. Now you want to stand up real quick, Len? So Len's a connection of ours on our board to folks down in Pierce County. So with that, I'll turn over to Paul.
Thanks. What I'll do tonight is just kind of start things off regarding the issues that we cover by touching on what's going on with the state budget, and then discuss two issues that were debated in the legislature. In fact, action was taken on them in the legislature this last session, but those same two issues will be coming up in the fall as well. So there's going to be a debate on these through the summer, and I'll touch on those in just a moment. But first, I'll just mention that what you're going to be seeing tonight is what I consider the great advantage of our organization, and that is the ability of our board to do the capital campaign that Greg mentioned, and that allows us to recruit remarkable academic talent, and that's really the heart of our research program, and that's what you're going to be hearing from tonight. The reason I say that is because it's fairly unique to work for an independent think tank, because on the one hand, we try to recruit center directors who are enthusiastic about their issue, intellectually curious, really want to know the truth and the facts. They're not interested in spinning an issue or pushing a particular agenda, except for the free market orientation that we have, but really want to know where the numbers lead. But at the same time, be able to present that information both in forms like this, or in writing with our publications, or through the media. So the folks that you'll be hearing from tonight can, in the same afternoon, can spend the hours digging into an Excel chart spreadsheet that they got from the Office of Financial Management, and yet do a live interview on KBI talking about the same issue later on that same day. And it's that mix of talent that we really try to draw on when we recruit for the organization. What I'll do to get things started is just mention about general budget trends. Our Budget Reform Center Director, Jason, will be going into more detail. What I wanted to talk about was where does the deficit come from, what did they do in this most recent session, again, an overview, and what is the longer term trend. So as a researcher, when I see something like the state faces a $2.8 billion deficit as they did going into this session, the first question you ask is why? Where did that come from? What conditions created that? Was it lack of money? Did tax revenue fall off so dramatically because of the economic recession? That seems to be the common understanding. It's certainly the way that a lot of leaders in Olympia describe the issue. That's true to an extent, but the interesting thing about the way statistics and numbers work is that it's really a slowing in the growth of revenue or a leveling off of a long-term trend of growth that had occurred all through the good times when the economy was hot. So I actually asked Jason to check, well, what is the total amount of spending, everything that the state spends this year, and is it higher or lower than it was in the past? And Jason helped put together this bar chart, which tells the story. So we posted this on our webpage, very simple, and it just shows each biennium, all funds, total spending. So most of the news coverage is about the general fund, about 1/2 to 1/3 that the legislature actually controls. But all funding that the state spends actually looks more like this, slightly up or maybe leveling off a little bit in the last few years. You don't hear this very much in the news media because there's a constant sense of fiscal crisis in Olympia, driven by a desire to constantly raise taxes and raise more money to fund the growth of government. That was reflected in the budget they did pass, which included $800 million in new taxes, and Jason will provide some detail on that. The two issues I wanted to touch on that they talked about in the session in the last First of all, a state income tax, and then second is the repeal of the Initiative 960 tax limitation, and then an initiative that's going to be coming up on that in the fall. On the income tax, again, our kind of bloodhound in Olympia, Jason, tracked that what he noticed one day that on March 4th, the Senate Ways and Means Committee had an announcement shortly before lunchtime that they were going to have a hearing that afternoon on a state income tax bill. This was news to most people that follow issues. And so he attended the hearing, and so it was just an airing of this idea that they didn't take action on the bill. That bill certainly didn't pass the legislature, but it did set things up for an announcement that was made just last week of an initiative 1077, and this is a bold, real proposal to create a state income tax in Washington State. This is going from the discussion stage to the debate and then implementation stage. At least that's what the sponsors hope for. What form does it take? In this case, it's high earners tax. It started at people who make more than $400,000 a year for couples or $200,000 a year for individuals. And there are two other elements to the initiative as well. One is a tax credit for on the B&O tax, targeted mostly at small businesses, and then a 20% reduction in the state portion of people's property taxes. So that requires a little bit of math to understand how that works. The average tax bill across the state, about 21% of it is the state portion. So what's 20% of 21%? That works out to be about 4% total. So the property tax reduction, again, average across the state, if this were enacted, would be about a 4% reduction in the property tax overall. And the same with the B&O tax, is that what I want to do is get some information that indicates how many businesses would actually be affected, how much would their tax liability go down. Any form of tax relief from our point of view in this economy is good news. I mean, we would say that that's good policy to relieve the tax burden that the government places on society as a whole. That's counterbalanced, of course, by this idea of adopting a state income tax, which would be a major change for us. And also, the proponents of the initiative estimate that it will result in $1 billion in surplus revenue, or $1 billion increase that would come net, that would come from this policy change of adopting a state income tax. The attractive thing, I mean, the OFM has already done the numbers that only 3% of the population would pay this tax. So it's very easy for 97% of us to say, let's make those folks pay more. What we're interested in is what is the macro effect on the overall economy, especially for high earners, investors, people that tend to drive job creation. Many small business people easily meet those income limits, and they would pay the tax. The second thing that struck me about the income tax, and this is, I'm going to be doing more research on this, is that all new taxes start out small. So if you look over time, historically, a tax structure is put in place, and then it's very easy for lawmakers to adjust rates to change income limits later on. And I'll give three quick examples. The federal income tax rate started back in the early 1900s was 1%. The sales tax, which started in this state in the 1930s, the sales tax rate across all products in the economy was 2%. And the first gas tax in the United States enacted in 1927 was, guess what, 1 cent a gallon. So we're quite a ways away today from those low tax rates where those taxes started out. I would almost, it's impossible for an analyst to predict what's going to happen in the future, but I feel very confident when I've done media interviews on this subject. I can almost guarantee you that in the future, at some point, the income tax rates and income levels would be changed, most likely by future legislatures as they seek to change the amount of revenue that they get from that tax. The second issue that I'll just wrap up with briefly here is tax limitation. So 3 times the voters of Washington State have adopted a limitation rule in 1993, 1998, and in 2007 to require a 2/3 majority of the legislature to vote for tax increases. So that's a supermajority requirement. In each case, the limitation was slowly adjusted or repealed or changed, and so didn't have any effect. This last time, it happened much faster than that. They repealed it in just a few days, and that was because of the press of seeking more revenue because of the economy and to set up for the passage of a budget that included the $800 million tax increase. And so the repeal, which is a temporary 2-year repeal, so if the legislature takes no action, the limitation would come back into effect in 2 years. But that happened very fast because they needed that decision right away. signature level that he has to reach by a deadline in July and then qualify for the ballot. And so we may be voting on that. So the income tax initiative has a lot of, Bill Gates Sr. is behind it. The labor unions in the state are strongly behind it. So we're confident that it will reach the signature level and almost certainly qualify for the ballot. So we will see that issue in November. The tax limitation, again, run by Tim Iman. You're never quite sure what kind of fundraising he's going to be able to put together. But again, by July, we will know whether it's qualified, and we may be voting on that issue as well. So that's what's going on. Next is, I think, education with Lee. So Lee Finna will give us a rundown